When we can let someone see us in the quote unquote, the good, the bad, and the ugly, it's the first moment that we're actually available for love. It's the first moment that we're actually able to trust love, because we let ourselves be seen. If we're pretending and that person loves us, well, if they only knew me, but if I let that side out, if I do that, and we never drop in to the depth that's available. And then to bring that to a closure is when we marry ecstatic authenticity, our beingness, with ecstatic intimacy.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us today. I am with Joanna Shakti, and Joanna is the founder of Ecstatic Intimacy. And I'm really excited to talk to Joanna today. So, Joanna, thank you for being here.
Lisa, thanks for hosting. I'm excited to explore with you.
Yeah, this is such an important topic to me because in our spiritual process and the way that we are meant to grow, it has a whole lot to do with letting go of old belief systems, blockages, and to me, intimacy is a huge issue for a lot of people. And I want to throw this in here because it doesn't matter how old you are. Some people, maybe older, I don't even care about sex anymore, intimacy. I'm not going to have a relationship. But what I found is that when we're moving through the spiritual process and becoming, more one, moving into this new consciousness, we have to let go of, and I'm saying we don't have to, but the universe is pushing us to let go of a lot of these old belief systems. And me personally, I'm a child of the 60s. I was born in the early 60s. My parents were in the 40s and 50s. And I was raised with the values of that generation.
Yeah.
And it affected me through life. And I also grew up with no conversation about what a relationship should even be. And so me personally went through my entire life, basically up to this point, not really understanding that I'm not supposed to do something because the other person expects me to do it. I don't do something because I think it's a role, or, I don't play because it falls into a category of good girl or bad girl. And so why I think that this is so important is that it's a part of so many different belief systems, religious belief systems, societal belief systems of who we should be and who we shouldn't be, when intimacy is so extremely important to our heart and to our well-being. So before any of you guys check off, stay here and listen to this. Anybody that's afraid to have this conversation, nobody knows you're watching.
Nobody knows, and the possibilities.
Yeah.
Possibilities.
Yeah. So again, this is why, Joanna, thank you again for being here and sharing your information and your perspective. So I would really kind of like to start with your journey. So you actually started, you were in a business career, a high-powered business career, and then things started changing, and then here you are today. Would you be interested in telling us your story?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, it's the soul journey. And through my own pain that I find my own wholeness and my passion and my purpose. And so absolutely, I'm happy to share that. I'm just slightly older than you. I was born in the late 60s.
Okay.
And
well, you're younger than me. I was born in the early 60s.
Yes. No, I was thinking you're slightly, and I revert. Yeah, that thing. But in any case, you've got a few years on me.
Yeah.
But still, the conditioning that I got growing up in the early 70s, well, through the whole 70s, and watching the divorce movement was starting to really accelerate. And the feminist movement, the women's movement was key during those times. And they were big influencers. And the reason my parents split when I was 7, and the dynamics were complicated, and my 7-year-old mind made up a lot of stories about men, about myself, about love, about relationships. And then I watched their follow on dynamics, some of which were beautiful, some of which were not. And through all of that, I continued to build my perceptions. And one of the impacts was that I decided I was the problem. And so the self-love aspects, which when we get into the relational dynamics, the relationship that we have with ourselves actually matters in our intimate romantic relationships. And that used to piss me off. I was like, I don't need to love myself. I am fully capable of loving you. And it would make me entirely angry when someone would point at that until, fast forward a bunch of years. And I was like, oh man, they were right. But it was that influence of my own relationship with myself, plus what I thought it meant to be a good woman, a powerful woman, a modern woman. I didn't want to depend on a man. I didn't want to ever need anything. And growing up in the conservative Midwest, and one grandfather was a minister and the other one, not so much. Really interesting dynamics. And so all of those pieces really pushed me into a direction where I prided myself on outmanning the men that were around me. Mm-hmm. I prided myself on the strong, independent, I don't need anything, I've got everything. Mm-hmm. I got an electrical engineering degree and an MBA and started climbing the corporate ladder in oil and gas because I'd followed a man to Houston, Texas in the 90s. But I'm all of a sudden in oil and gas with the Good Old Boy Network. And I'm managing 60-year-old men in my late 20s. All of this perpetuated facade after strategy after facade after strategy to become who I thought would be loved, to become who I thought would be successful, who I thought would be safe. And I was lost. Like who I really was completely lost. It was performative.
Yeah.
Until late 2001, when I had a wake-up call. I was trying to figure out why I was then divorced after 4 years, why I was so frustrated with men, why I couldn't have an orgasm. And I started seeking. And I found myself at a couple of events. The first one was where I wouldn't have thought this walking in, but it talked about love 360 degrees, if you will. And my relationship with myself, to my relationship with the divine, to my relationship with the stranger, let alone a beloved, and everything in between. And then the second thing that showed up was the awareness of the masculine and the feminine, and particularly what those energies meant on an authentic, conscious, divine level. And in a nutshell, I buried, with all of the things that I had experienced, I buried anything that looked like femininity, anything that I thought might make me soft and dependent or doormat or any of those things, powerless. And I took on a masculine persona. The persona was very, I can do anything and just give it to me, I'll get it done, and I don't need any help. And therefore, I was exhausted, resentful, couldn't have an orgasm, pushed away all the men I was attracted to. And it was those wake-up calls, though, about love and about the importance of the masculine and the feminine within myself and in the relational dynamics and in the sexual dynamics, where I woke up in late 2001 and went, oh, this is my soul's path. I have to figure this out for me.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have to serve women so they don't go through the same pain that I've been through. And I have to serve men so they don't go through the pain that I put men through. And of course, that's evolved to all expressions, all genders, all orientations.
Mm-hmm.
We all work with love. We all are love. And we all got masculine and feminine energy. So it was a departure from corporate in 2003. And now, 22, almost 23 years later, the honor of getting to serve individuals, couples on this journey of returning to true love and true soulful authenticity.
Yeah. Well, I understand your story. Because I think I'm right behind you. I'm walking in your footsteps. And, and one of the things that I recognized when you were talking, and I kind of recognized it, but I think you put it more in front of me, is that I was always trying to please my dad.
Mm-hmm.
And so whatever he thought, that's what I was trying to be
Mm-hmm.
exactly what you successful in business. Don't cry. Don't show any emotions. You got to toughen up. And
Yes.
and I think that's very much a part of who I know. You and I are not the only ones that have felt that.
No.
And I because I was so involved with my father's approval, I never picked up the feminine aspect of my mother.
Mm-hmm.
And again, I can kick ass in business. I can, because I have a business background too, and I can stand up to any man. But when it comes down to showing that vulnerable side,
Yeah.
and so I had to really work at letting all this go, and I'm not really sure I'm even all the way through it. This may bring up some more stuff. I've been doing this work for 30 years, and here's something else I got to work on.
It's a journey. I'm 20 years on the path. And does that mean I got this all figured out? No. It's,
No,
we're a blossoming. We're
yeah,
continually unfolding.
yeah. It's always something, but conversations is why it's important to be able to. Oh, okay, here we go. Now I see something else. So you founded the concept of ecstatic intimacy. So it's your business,
Mm-hmm.
but how did all of this evolve, and what's the premise of it?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I left corporate, and I knew again, the first couple of years were predominantly focused on me, but really revealing, as you talked about in the beginning, the consciousness that we hold, the emotions that we've repressed and suppressed and denied, and because don't cry, don't show your emotions, whether we are male or female or anywhere in between,
Mm-hmm.
our society in general has a very negative relationship with our emotions.
Yeah.
Unless we're super happy. But we can't be super happy when we're trying to push everything else down. And so really it was the journey of my own emotional connecting and awakening and allowing, which was part of the feminine energy. Men on that end of the gender spectrum get so judged when they bring their emotions, and it's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
Creating a safe space for men to feel. But there's a dynamic that happens between us when we're in a romantic space, in a sexual space. But that predominantly masculine being needs a space to be able to feel his emotions.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes him attractive as long as he's not collapsing in them. And there's a whole thing that we could dive into around that.
Yeah.
And so many women have been conditioned to believe that if they show emotions, they're not attractive.
Yeah.
And yet the masculine, when a feminine being is in conscious relationship with her emotions, so whether they're intense or they're tender and vulnerable, so many conscious men are actually turned on.
Mm-hmm.
Like they actually fall more deeply in love, and their attraction goes up. And so it's this journey to come back to ourselves. So, to your question, how did ecstatic intimacy arise? Well, one, the divine told me that was the name. But really, there's three phases of this journey that I take people on. The middle phase is actually the ecstatic intimacy phase, where we're connecting heart to heart, body to body, soul to soul. And through our connection, we are evolving each other's souls. But if we're going to be in a journey to evolve each other's souls, that means our buttons are going to get pushed.
Yeah.
All the stuff that we didn't want to look at, our partner is going to trigger.
Mm-hmm.
And that doesn't mean they're the wrong partner,
Yeah.
which is one of the mistakes that so many people make, is to walk away from that. Now, we need consciousness in how we navigate it, and that's part of what we do in the ecstatic intimacy phase of the journey, so that our conflicts and our challenges can become connection and communion. But what's happening in this intimacy dynamic, this relational dynamic, this partnership, has everything to do with the two individuals that make up that partnership. Mm-hmm. And so the first step in the phase is actually what we call ecstatic authenticity. Who am I? And that I know who I am. I know my needs, my wants, my desires, my turn-ons, my turn-offs, my boundaries. But I also know the quote unquote, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Because we all have it. We all have our unconscious patterns. We all have our reactions. And that doesn't make us bad. It makes us human. And our humanness is the core of what falls in love. And so the way that we trust the intimacy in the middle phase is that we trust ourselves and we trust our own lovability. We trust our enoughness. And when we can let someone see us in the quote unquote, the good, the bad, and the ugly, it's the first moment that we're actually available for love. It's the first moment that we're actually able to trust love, because we let ourselves be seen. If we're pretending and that person loves us, well, if they only knew me, but if I let that side out, if I do that, and we never drop in to the depth that's available. And then to bring that to a closure is when we marry ecstatic authenticity, our beingness, with ecstatic intimacy, our relatedness, we get ecstatic ecstasy. The life, the love, and the lovemaking that take our breath away. Time and time and time again. Mm-hmm. The unconditional, devoted unity with ourselves in relationship and in life. That's the journey.
Okay, so if I'm not in a relationship, but I'm looking at either letting go of old belief systems or trying to prepare myself for a relationship to come, this applies to everyone, doesn't it?
10,000%. And as a matter of fact, my community is probably 70 to 75% individuals.
Yeah.
And it's great when the couples come in to do this work, but a lot get resistant because I actually invite them to do the individual work. I don't care if they've been married 30 years. What's happening in that marriage of 30 years is what's happening in the two beings.
Right.
So it's actually, we practice and we relate and we learn through our relational dynamics, but that doesn't have to be romantic. Mm-hmm. I've had women come into this work and all of a sudden they've changed entire organizations.
Yeah.
Because they became who they were, not because they tried to change their organizations, mm-hmm. but because they came home to themselves. And therefore, any relationship, grandparents to we've had, the grandparent relationships, yeah. the parent-child relationships, the sibling relationships, the neighbor relationships, the business relationships, and of course, the romantic relationships. Yeah. But you do not at all need to be in a relationship to actually experience all three of those phases.
Yeah. Well, I think it's important to understand that, because if I don't know who I am, I can't even have a good, honest friendship.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And so, the way that we've been conditioned, and family beliefs, family actions that caused my perception. Like you said, when your parents got divorced, it created some ideas in your head. My parents got divorced when I was 10. And so,
Mhm.
when we're kids, we don't understand what's going on. And so we don't really understand the full scope. And so our mind starts creating these stories. I should have done something different, or I should have been different. Or your parents are saying to you, you have to think this way, you have to act this way. So I never even know my full identity.
Yes.
I'm layering my identity with other people's
Yes.
words.
Yes.
And that's who I think I am. And if we start looking at these layers of words that I'm falling into, I'm existing in somebody else's reality. Or
Yes.
if that's the right way to
Agreed.
say it. Because everybody's the same way.
Absolutely. This is core in our first program, but also in one of our retreats, we really go into. I reached because I wanted to grab these two silly acrylic diamonds
Uh-huh.
because we come into the world brilliant light, imperfect, flawed. We've got our personalities,
Uh-huh.
and but life happens, and we're told. You talked about the good girl, good boy. We're told this is what's good, so we take on that and we try to be that, and then that hurts, so I don't want to be that, and somebody doesn't like this, and so we just keep covering over, and we forget who we lose complete sight of who we are. Now, if I had four hands, I could take this diamond that's totally covered up, and then I could take the second diamond that's totally covered up, and these two people try to get in a relationship.
Yeah.
And they want to be loved for who they are, but they're not willing to show, and they don't even
No.
know how to be who they are.
Yeah, exactly. They don't even know who they are.
They don't know who
Yeah.
they are.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then they try to, many try to maintain that love
Yeah.
by being what they think will maintain the love.
Yeah.
But that is actually the quickest path to destroy a relationship.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, as you're describing, we're pulling the layers back off.
Yeah. I call it the uncovering, the great uncovering.
Yes.
And what's, this thing called awakening. Awakening seems to be my new trigger word. I'm not really happy about this thing called awakening. So I'm just calling it's the uncovering.
Yeah.
It's just the uncovering of who we really are.
Huh.
But within that, we still have to find who we are.
Yes.
We've got to start living life differently than what it was.
Yes.
But we also have to have a teacher to show us, or somebody to show us how we can do it differently than the way we've always done it, because we didn't know any different. And that's where you come in.
And it's such an honor when I watch, and it's so amazing when people come into this work and they so want a relationship, and then they find themselves, and I can feel the emotion because when I watch somebody come home to themselves, like, whoa, now, yes, I want a relationship, but I don't need one now.
Right.
It's not that old metaphor of you
Yeah.
complete me. And this is so precious.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I define ecstatic authenticity as that I know who I am, those needs, wants, and desires, but I like myself so much that I don't want to be anybody else.
Yeah.
I don't want to twist myself into a pretzel, settle, sell out for anybody or anything, because this is precious.
Yeah. And this is what I've really come to recognize is, because I do private sessions too. I do on one-on-one sessions, and people ask me questions. And one of, the most common question is, when am I going to meet Mr. Right or Mrs. Right?
Yeah.
When am I going to am I going to have a relationship again? Is this, is my true love going to come to me? But what you're saying is that, and this is what I'm hearing you say, because I want you to correct me if I'm not hearing you wrong. What I'm hearing you say is that when you get to a certain level, it's nice to have somebody's company, but it's not mandatory. It doesn't define me anymore. Where the old princess and Prince Charming story was that this is the way that we were conditioned to believe. You were supposed to get married, you're supposed to have kids and live happily ever after. And so the only thing that's going to make me whole and complete is to have this relationship.
Yes.
But the way that we're shifting and changing is recognizing what you just said. When I find the truth of who I am and in my wholeness, I don't have to have that relationship. It just is. It will come to me because I'm not grabbing. And where the relationship becomes successful is because I'm not just grabbing anybody off the street just to have somebody next to me.
The better than nothing syndrome,
Yeah,
as one of my teachers 25 years ago called it.
yeah.
Yes. And it's very much that. Now, the one thing I'll add is that in general, I do believe we are community beings,
Yeah.
that we are relational beings. And but each of us has our unique soul journey.
Mm-hmm.
I don't believe that any of us are supposed to, in general, be the isolated in the cave, never having romantic connection.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'm not going that far with it.
Mm-hmm.
But to what you said, yes, that the old idea that relationship is where we're fulfilled. Now I've done what I'm supposed to do. Now I'm complete. Now I'm safe.
Yeah.
Which a lot of women do.
Yeah.
And we're not, because when we choose the better than nothing relationship, when we choose because it's what we were conditioned to do, we don't choose well, as you said. This leads to the unhappiness, the heartbreak, the deeper friction. And when we can choose relationship, and that's really the important word, we choose relationship rather than desperately grasping for relationship. We choose it from authenticity.
Yep.
And when two authentic beings go, this is what I'm really looking for, and this is what I'm really looking for, wow, those really meet. And I'm going to tell you when something doesn't align for me. Okay, great. And we can keep deciding, are we choosing in? That becomes the most potent, ecstatic, take your breath away, and oh, by the way, safe relationship.
Yeah.
Authentic relationships are the safest relationships.
Yeah.
They are the easiest to trust in.
Yeah. But we got to find ourselves first, right?
But we've got to find ourselves first in order to be able to create that.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Okay. So you use a term soul love.
Yeah.
What does that mean to you?
Yeah. Soul love to me means, it's a layered answer. At the greatest level, it is the unconditional unity and complete acceptance that we get to experience where we're connected to our whole self and others' whole selves. So the first aspect of soul love is actually unconditional love for ourselves. Knowing I've got my flaws and my warts, and I'm meant to be loved by me regardless of that. And when I feel that love for myself, then I can let someone else love me in that imperfection. Mm-hmm. And ultimately, I can love all from that place of the divine humanness. And so the soul love is this multi-layered that ultimately takes us into everything is love. Everything is welcome. Mm-hmm. And on the other side of that layering, it is the complete embrace of self as we are.
Yeah. Okay, perfect answer. Thank you. Okay, so when you're talking about learning how to love ourselves, we have to overcome and identify our barriers from doing that. Mm-hmm. So can you kind of give us a little bit of guidance on how we identify what these barriers are that we've created?
Yeah, absolutely. So again, it's multi-layered, multifaceted, but the self-awareness, the willing to start to pull apart our feelings and our thoughts being the stories that we tell about our feelings and our experiences. When those two are so intertwined that the thinking is amping the feeling and the feeling is driving the thinking, We are so caught on unconscious autopilot that we can barely navigate anything. But if we can start to slow things down, and we can start to, if you will, decouple the thinking and the feeling, we can begin to see the storylines that we've taken on. I'm too much. I'm not enough. My feeling is too much. I am, I should be this way and I'm not. This is what gets loved. The good girls don't do this. Good boys don't do this. Conscious men do this. Conscious women do this. Successful people do this. It's all of those stories, because all of those stories become the things that have covered up, that are setting us up for the uncovering that you were talking about. And so the slowing down and starting to become aware of, what do we tell ourselves? Is that true? And what else is possible when we don't tell that story anymore? And oh, by the way, what is that storyline costing us? Mm-hmm. How is it impacting us physically, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, sexually, intimately? And that then from this self-awareness, we can look at the consciousness that we've held and have the opportunity to, quote, choose to choose again. Mm-hmm. And that journey, each time we can let go of something that was never true to begin with, we just bought into it. Mm-hmm. We come closer to being at home in ourselves. And our work, and I'll just say the last thing I'll add is that the work that we're doing in our retreats and in our programs is creating experiences that bring those storylines to the surface.
Yeah, because that's what I was going to ask you is, so I think, like I've been doing this work so long, I can kind of see, like immediately I can tell, well, I'm doing this because I'm trying to make my dad happy. I recognize it because, yes. I can feel my body shift and change, and I kind of know the signs of when it's not my true authentic self and it's something else that I'm falling into. But not everybody has done as much work as I have. Yeah. So, like if somebody's just like kind of waking up into this new world, and of, oh my God, this isn't.
Wait a minute. I don't have to be that way.
Yeah, what? I can change. I don't have to fall into this. What's happening here? Right. And so somebody that is just starting to recognize, wait a minute, do I act like this because my mother told me that this is the way I'm supposed to be, and I've just kind of fallen into that, because this can go into so many different judgment, of things like that, all the things. So how does somebody, are there some kind of telltale signs? Is there something that can show, oh, that's a conditioned belief system, that's a conditioned response, that's something that was told to you? I mean, how do we even start figuring out what we need to work on?
Yeah, absolutely. So there's it's the first journey is to self. And the first place we want to fall in love is with self. And so starting to look at just being with our life. Now, of course, when somebody's in a program space or retreat space, we're creating experiences that start to reveal some of these more quickly, more directly. But in general, in life, we want to see what it is we want, what we desire, and then we notice when we're moving towards it, great. But when we hit a road bump, when we move away, when we push against, when we resist, we get curious. Mm-hmm. And there's very simple questions that we can begin to ask ourselves about what's happening. And here's a contrast I want to offer with how you were describing it, Lisa, is that we don't actually have to know where we got the conditioning from. We don't have to know that we're trying to please dad. Sometimes it shows up and we go, oh, that's why I do that. And the awareness comes, but it's actually not a necessary ingredient. We can simply see that we have a belief system that says, I'm supposed to be a certain way. Or we have a belief system that says, I'm not lovable. Maybe it came because of the divorce. Maybe it became because the first boy that we were interested in wasn't interested in us. Who knows?
Yeah.
It's the kid on the playground that called us a name, and we like
Yeah.
it sometimes we'll figure that out,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't have to find that. It's holding the consciousness and then discovering, looking for the evidence that it's actually not true in an absolute sense. Might have been true in a circumstance,
Mm-hmm.
but too often we take that circumstance and make it the absolute. And so this is part of that journey of seeing, here's the storyline that I'm telling myself, and then beginning to see that it's not corely true.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden things can begin to soften and fall away.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if, like if you start recognizing that there's some resistance in what's happening, or all of a sudden you kind of start feeling uncomfortable, that, choices and decisions that are just not feeling right. Um, are those signs or signals as well?
Anything that feels like it's not flowing, where we contract. So there's our emotions expand us and they contract us. So anytime we go into a contractive state, anytime we tighten, there's usually wisdom in that. It's usually an indicator of fear and control. And so then starting to be curious with ourselves, what am I feeling?
Yeah.
What am I telling myself right now? So it's a simple curiosity. Now, this is, as you were saying on some level, this is not always easy to do by ourselves. Our minds are tricky little devils that are trying to keep all of this down. No, just go. Don't worry about that. That's not important. But we're suffering.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's really supportive to have a mentor, a coach, a guide, a community around us where they're helping us also create the safe spaces and to have the conversations where we can feel safe enough to begin admitting some of our storylines.
Yeah.
But it's that slowing down and being willing to see.
Yeah. So you mentioned a little bit about the masculine and the feminine energy.
Yeah.
Can we go a little bit deeper into that and how that affects our relationships now?
Absolutely. You want me to just dive in?
Yeah, and again, I know that there's a lot to it, but I think maybe just the basics. And
Yeah.
the reason why, because I had John Gray on, who the author of Men Are
Yeah.
from Mars and Women Are from Venus, and it was kind of interesting talking to him because his perspective is a male perspective, you know,
Yes.
and then I'm so spiritually different than a lot of
Yeah.
people that live a little bit more in their heads and define things, you know,
Yeah.
into groups or categories. But I think that being able to understand that, like you and I, what you were talking about, we had a lot of masculine energy and didn't have as much feminine energy, but where this balance is and how too much of one or the other can be a little bit hard on us, and how it is kind of important to balance out both sides.
It's actually interesting.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan of the word balance.
Yeah.
Because what most people hear is equalizing, which turns into neutralizing, or to use a more strong word, neutering our authentic energy and our authentic self. We have different constitutions.
Mm-hmm.
And so let's pull this apart. Masculine and feminine. Many people also hear gender. They are not gender.
Right.
They are energetic aspects. At the most ancient teaching is probably from the Taoist tradition and the yin and the yang symbol.
Right.
The yin being the feminine, the yang being the masculine. In that symbol, it teaches us a lot. And there's a relational dynamic. At the ends, one becomes the other. And so what that means practically is that we all have yin and yang. They must be in relationship with each other. They often have one that is more predominant in our constitution than the other. But we want to be able to cultivate both energies. We want to have access to both energies. But romantically, sexually, for example, myself predominantly feminine. If I'm in a hot, steamy kiss up against a wall, I want to be against the wall being kissed most of the time. That's an aspect of the feminine energy. I want someone to initiate. I want someone to ask me out and take me on a date. Those are aspects of feminine energy, and I can define that a little bit more. But all of this to say that we have our sexual turn on is tied to our masculine and feminine energy. Mm-hmm. I'm more turned on by a masculine partner, and partners that are more predominant, or people that are more predominantly masculine, are going to be turned on by partners that are more predominantly feminine. Mm-hmm. So not everyone has a predominant energy, but there's a lot of correlation for many beings who are on the female end of the gender spectrum with feminine energy, the male end of the gender spectrum with masculine energy. There are some people where it's reversed, and there are some people where it is truly more neutral. And there's a very, I'm just as turned on by being against the wall as I am by facing the wall. But the first thing, talk about authenticity and coming home. This is one of the first things I unravel with people, because there's so much conditioning about what a man should be, what a woman should be, what a person should be. And we've abandoned our authenticity. And I judged that feminine being, didn't want anything to do with her. Mm-hmm. But I was lost. I couldn't be found. And I couldn't have the romantic connection nor the sexual dynamics that I wanted, because of that misunderstanding and expectation that I was actually more masculine. Not true. Mm. Actually much more feminine. And so that's the first part of coming home, and why it's so important, because there's so many men in the world right now that say, I don't want to be that guy. So they've put on a nice guy persona, and the women in their lives aren't turned on. Mm-hmm. They don't want the bad boy. It's not the bad boy. The bad boy is the absence of any feminine energy. Mm-hmm. That actually moves in the direction of, I don't like the word toxic, but I'll use it to make a point. It moves into that unconscious toxic masculine realm when there's no heart, when there's no feeling, which is the feminine. So let me back up to the symbol. In the black side of the yin and the yang symbol is traditionally the yin side. The white side is traditionally the yang side. So the feminine side and the masculine side. What most people don't notice is that there's a circle of white inside the black. There's a circle of black inside the white. So the heart of the masculine is actually yin, feminine. The heart of the feminine is actually yang, masculine. And now when we start to see this interplay within us, we can now ignite the interplay, the polarity, the attractive forces between us. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I have a silly question for you.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about define, and I may be crossing the line or something. No. But so because first of all, I want to make sure that everybody understands what you said, is that masculine energy is energy, feminine energy is energy. It's not the
physicality. It is not.
It is not that.
Yeah, right.
So what are masculine traits?
Yep. Super good question.
Okay.
So contrasting, you're going to see a contrast because they're truly contrasting complementary energies. So masculine energy is the directive, assertive, disciplined, driven, decisive, focused, penetrating energy. Notice that my hand is moving forward every time I describe it. It is a goal-oriented energy.
Mm-hmm.
It is a get shit done energy.
Mm-hmm.
It is a results energy.
Mm-hmm.
In contrast to that, feminine energy is a flowing energy. It is a receptive energy. It is a creative energy. It's an expressive energy. Notice my hands continue to go outward.
Mm-hmm.
The feminine energy is actually boundless. The feminine energy is more vulnerable. It's more sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
And it's more surrendered. The masculine takes charge, holds the container. The feminine lets go and flows within that container. Now, it's important if a woman says, oh my God, I can't ever be in control, I can't ever be in charge, she's going to react against, like I did, that feminine energy. But what we also see, we get into in our deeper work, is that there is actually something that correlate feminine power that is very, very different than masculine power. When we think of power, we tend to think power over, we tend to think control and domination.
Yeah.
But what power really is our ability to influence.
Mm-hmm.
And feminine energy, she has amazing power to influence. Mm-hmm. Through her presence, through her flow, through her grace, through her love, through her collaborative presence. She actually has massive ability to influence and therefore control. And it's critically important in our businesses, our families, that we start to see the distinction between masculine and feminine power.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Perfect.
Yes.
Okay. So when I'm sorry, I'm trying to figure out how to word this question.
Yeah.
Okay. So so first of all, when a couple feels like they're in a negative pattern,
mm-hmm.
how number one, how do they even, what is the negative pattern?
Right.
And then once they recognize that there's a pattern here, how do they deepen the connection, or how do they resolve that negative pattern?
Yeah, and so I'm gonna speak to couples, but I also want to say this could be true in a dating situation. Yeah. This could be true in a professional situation. Obviously,
or a friendship.
Or friendship, right? Yeah. Yeah. And in the friendship and professional environments, it's not going to have the romantic sexual connection, but much of the masculine feminine dynamics that we're talking about apply in all of these relationships. And so going back to couple or people or someone that's exploring potential coupleship, that whenever we feel, again, that contraction, we feel friction, there's something for us to learn. There's an opportunity. There's a gift that is waiting for us if we're willing to get curious and explore in ourselves. What a lot of people do is you go over there and change. Yeah. If you were different, then I'd be attracted to you. Mm-hmm. And so we have to stop and we have to look at the fingers that are pointing back at us.
Yeah.
And so then we start to go, okay, there's something that isn't feeling good in this connection, or there's something that we desire or I desire in this connection that I can't make my way to right now. Mm-hmm. So at that point, when we know there's either friction or desire, now we start to look at, okay, so what's happening for me? What's my part in this? We're so conditioned and it feels so much easier to go and look at the other person's part. But the key is where our power lies, where our ability to change things actually lies, is in what's happening for me. So one of the things that will happen for couples is they will stop having as much romance. They'll stop sometimes having sex, or sex becomes more of that scheduled, rote, almost chore. And or they don't trust each other anymore. And so it's starting to look at, very often, my overrunning of masculine energy would create dynamics where I would emasculate the men in my life. I would tell them how to do things. I would be the drive, and they'd like, okay. And they'd step back and they'd lean into their feminine energy, which then upset me even more.
Yeah.
So we have to start looking at, what is it that we desire? What is it that's creating our pain? And what is my part in that? And a lot of feminine beings will go, when my partner is more masculine, then I'll be more feminine. But that's just going to take us into a downward spiral. Mm-hmm. How do I start to baby step by baby step, sometimes baby step by baby step, start to find my way into my own femininity? And oh, by the way, then that starts to magnetize, ignite our partner's masculinity. Mm-hmm. So this is how we begin to unravel that dynamic. What's happening and what's my part?
Yeah. Yeah, that makes complete sense. I totally understand that.
and this is where it gets to, it doesn't mean it's always easy, but it gets really simple and it gets really practical.
Yeah. Well, the other thing is, like when you were talking, I was thinking about how we point the finger, and that if you would only change, if you would only do it the way that I want you to do it, where is this line drawn? Where, and again, that may be too defining, but okay, so I want you to be more romantic. I want you to pick up your clothes. I want you to change your personality. I want you to, and if you do all these things, then I'll be happy. And then the person on the other end's like, well, okay, I'll just change everything that I do that is not really a part of me. I'm losing my identity trying to keep you happy. And I'm now, a different, I'm trying to just please you instead of live my life. So when we have a tendency to, and because it's all their fault.
Yes.
They're the ones that's wrong. They're the ones that need to do better. And again, I don't know where this came from, but it's a comment. So how do we maneuver through wanting to change the other person? And I think women are really bad about that.
We can be. And this is why I said the pain that I caused men. Like, we all have, too often we're pointing the fingers at each other.
Yeah.
We have caused harm and suffering to each other.
Yeah.
And in many cases, we can't see it all until we get into conscious spaces and we really start to go, oh, that's the impact that I'm having on him. Oh, that's the impact that I'm having on her. And so it's really important to bring that consciousness. And it's really an unlayering. It's really an unlayering. And our opportunity, one, to say, what's actually important to me? So often if we got into a better than nothing relationship, and this is one of the things that keeps single, is they keep stepping into relationships that really aren't their aligned divine relationship. And so then they get frustrated because the person isn't showing up the way they want them to. Mm-hmm. So the first thing is that we look at, what do I truly want? Then we can unlayer, well, why do I want that? Because, well, this will make me safe. This will make me allow me to be myself. Then I'll get to have what I want. That creates dependency. And dependency, we need interdependency. We need to choose to rely on each other. Mm-hmm. But where we're dependent on our partner to be a certain way, we actually are powerless in that dynamic. And powerless never creates a solid relationship. Mm-hmm. So where you need to change, we've given up all of our power to that other person. So we have to come back here and find our agency again. Mm-hmm. And we have to take responsibility for the choices that we made. And some partnerships, while many actually truly have the capacity to work through the soulful friction that turns that relationship into something amazing, There are also ones where we really, really chose someone that wasn't aligned. And the evolution for both souls is to actually take new journeys.
Yeah. Yeah. And that is a thing. You know? Yeah, because yeah, people, I mean, people ask those questions, and you know, and I know this because that's what I do. I'm reading the records of the souls,
Yes.
and that maybe relationships are supposed to be there together for a short time, learn the lessons, and then they're supposed to split. They're not always meant to stay together.
Yes,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah. So, okay. So when we talk about kind of, you know, like, okay, so now I've recognized this, like you said, you know, this is the situation, and I need to kind of change me and see things a little bit differently. So once we get to this point, it's like, how do people navigate? Okay, so for example, what if I'm really ready to work on myself, and okay, I'm ready to see things differently, I'm ready to let go of these old ways, but my partner's not, my partner's just fine.
Yep.
So how do we navigate through this?
Yeah. Your partner doesn't need to do anything,
Okay.
because when you shift, the relationship will shift.
Yeah.
It has to.
Mhm.
There's no other way. And it's not just because all of a sudden we got forceful. It's because where I said, this is a slightly different example, but the woman I was talking about who's changed two different IT organizations, like just by being herself.
Yeah.
She didn't go in trying to enhance the communication between team members. She just showed up more communicative, more authentic, and all of a sudden it starts to rub off. That's only one of the dynamics. Oh, I can ask for help. Oh, now I'm asking her for help. Everybody else is asking for help. So that's a bigger group example. But if I show up and begin to share authentic feelings, I see my partner differently. I'm more feminine or more masculine, depending on
Mhm.
the person. All of a sudden, they're responding differently.
Yeah.
Oh, you didn't just blow up at me. That was a kind way to respond to something that could have. Wait, hang on. Let's talk about this. And all of a sudden, things are evolving.
Yeah.
So we don't need, as a matter of fact, in our community, there again, it's not uncommon for one partner to come into this work. And sometimes the partner will follow, but they don't need to,
Mhm.
because the relationship evolves with the individual's evolution.
Good. Okay. That's good news.
Absolutely.
Okay, so you talked about the ecstatic union.
Yeah.
So what is that? What do you mean by that?
So authenticity, the individual, is the first, the me. The second part of the dynamic is then the partnership, the two beings that are distinct. When we don't have boundaries, when we people please, when we self abandon, like you were talking about, instead of having two individual beings in the partnership, we have this blob of enmeshment and codependency, which doesn't work to sustain a relationship. So we have to take the individual and then two individuals in clear partnership. And then at that point, when they actually navigate the sovereignty and the partnership, it's what actually ends up happening is that then the boundaries do start to blur, but not because of self-abandonment, but because of the fuller embodiment
Mhm.
of the wholeness, the oneness of who we truly are. And then it's as if it turns into an infinity loop. And where does one body end and the other begin? There's a unit that exists. Or if we're not in partnership, we still have that ecstasy. We're just ecstatically harmonized and in union with all of life.
Mhm.
So it's happening, this harmony, this unity within us, between us in relationships, and then beyond us
Mhm.
in this divine union, if you will.
Perfect. That'd be a great way to end it. You know, like the whole relationship. Let's be there.
Well, and that's the journey: ecstatic authenticity to ecstatic intimacy to ecstatic ecstasy,
Yeah.
that divine union. And then we get to evolve through that, and we just keep up leveling and expanding
Yeah.
more and more breathtaking life and lovemaking.
Yeah, perfect. So we this is about time to wrap up. And so, is there anything that we didn't touch on that you feel like you want to share with people?
Thank you, Lisa. We touched on it, but I think the thing that I come back to is that when each individual, each person gets to live as who they truly are, their joy, their passion, their ecstasy, their soul's journey. And we bring that together in relationships. What we can do, what we can create, what we can experience, what we can embody is simply mind blowing. And it doesn't have to take as long as someone might think it takes. This journey can actually happen quite rapidly when we just show up for it. So the courage to show up for yourself and all the possibilities that are available when we love in that kind of profound way, inside, outside, between us, within us, beyond us.
Yeah. Well, and what the beautiful thing is about that is that when we love ourselves fully and completely, then we start seeing with eyes that love.
Yes.
We see every human with that love,
Yes.
which changes humanity.
Exactly.
This is the point.
This is the point.
Yeah,
Yes, Lisa.
exactly. Yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah. So, okay, so tell us what services you offer.
Yeah, absolutely. So I work with people in a variety of ways, and from individual work to um, retreats and then longer term programs that are deep dive immersives. So we have weekend retreats around relating and sexuality and the divine masculine and feminine. And then we have the program series that will take people on this journey into ecstasy, starting with the individual heart. And then I have a small number of private clients that I work with.
Do you do things over Zoom or is it just local?
Oh, absolutely. International. Work with
Okay.
people all over the world.
Okay. So if somebody wanted to schedule a one-on-one session, how would they get a
Yeah,
hold of you?
absolutely. So on the Ecstatic Intimacy website, which is ecstaticintimacy.com,
Mhm.
under resources, you'll find at the very bottom, it's the private session schedule. And
Okay.
that's where, and I start with everybody with just a single session. And then we see where someone is, if they're a fit, we see where someone wants to, and their soul is calling to move them along the rest of that journey.
Perfect. So for you guys, thank you, Joanna, for being here. You guys, thank you for listening. You can find Joanna's information and in the video description. Just scroll all the way down to the video description. At the bottom of the description, you'll see Joanna's contact information. You'll see her website there. So again, thank you for being with us. And gosh, what a great conversation. Thank you.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Lisa.
You guys, I'll see you guys next Monday. See ya.